Hello, people. This is Mac and Bob. Bob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing real well, Mac. Thank you. How are you?
Doing okay. Thanks for asking. It's another great day, beautiful sunshiny day here after a lot of rain down here in the southern state of Florida. Uh, Bob, we have some things to discuss here. We want to try to touch in, let the people know that we want to touch on the what's happening over there with Russia and how the Americans and the news media are reacting to that. And then we want to touch on some things that are getting ready to happen right there in your big city there of Detroit with the NAACP and how they are not doing what they must be doing for the black people in these United States. Uh, but first of all, Bob, let's take a look at what's happening over in Russia. The armed contractors over there, a gentleman by the name of Evgeny uh, Prigozhin, he launched an insurrection in Russia that began on Friday evening and lasted through Saturday. Now, the armed contractors managed to seize an army headquarters in the southern part of Russia, the country. However, they failed to rally other units and eventually aborted their advance towards Moscow after a deal was reached with the authorities. The agreement, which includes an amnesty for Prigozhin, was brokered by Belarusian leader Alexander Lushenko. The private military company Wagner Group was founded by the restaurateur and catering tycoon Yevgeny Prigozhin. The group's members fought alongside regular Russian troops and distinguished themselves in the bloody battle for the Donbass city of Artyomosik, known to Ukrainians as Bakhmut. Prigozhin is a vocal critic of the country's top military brass. He has publicly accused Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and General Valery Gerasimov, forgive me, Bob, if I'm not pronouncing these names accurately, the chief of the general staff, for mishandling the military operation in Ukraine. Prigozhin has also refused to sign an official contract with the Russian Defense Ministry. Now, this attempted uh, coup right here was, and the subsequent downplay of it, the stoppage of it, was brokered by the Belarusian president Lukashenko, who had spoken to Prigozhin on Putin's behalf, and the Wagner's boss agreed to end his attempted insurrection in exchange for security guarantees. Prigozhin stated hours later that the Wagner convoys were halting their advance towards Moscow and return to their bases. Now, you might say, well, what did the Kremlin do? Now, the criminal case against Wagner military company PMC founder Prigozhin will be dropped and he will leave Russia, the Kremlin announced on Saturday evening. Spokesman Peskov, he revealed that Prigozhin, a St. Petersburg tycoon, he made his initial fortunes, as I stated, in catering, will go to Belarus. He did not elaborate on what the businessman would do in the East European state. He added that Wagner's fighters will not be prosecuted, taking into account their efforts on the front lines of the Ukraine conflict. Peskov explained that President Putin's team have always respected their exploits. Now, the PMC contractors who refused to take part in the mutiny and whole units did not will be allowed to sign contracts with the Russian Defense Ministry. Bob, a lot of news media in the West it's been saying that this is going to be the downfall of Putin, and he will be gone, and it's going to be a turning point in the Russian-Ukraine war, in that Russia will just end that war over there. Let me ask you, Bob. Do you see any of that happening as it's being played out in the Western media?
No, I don't. Uh, I have a different take on what's happening over there right now. Uh, I think that this is a manufactured uh, distraction by the Russians and the Wagner Group uh, to in order to get an advance. They're winning the war in Ukraine. I think what's going to happen, because you remember about a couple of weeks ago, uh, Putin announced, or at least the Kremlin announced, that they were shifting many of their light nuclear weapons on the border in Belarus, which is right bordered borders uh, Ukraine on the northeast side of the country. And I think that the Wagner Group and this guy that's the head of it, this restaurateur, are they created that diversion, making the people think that there's much dissension between him and Putin, and in order to get into Belarus so that they can be prepared to begin launching nuclear weapons into Ukraine and into Kiev. I think that's the main city, and get this thing over with, because I think they want to go ahead and end this, and I think that this is just a tactical ruse by and I think it's a very smart move too, because if you can get your enemy to think that there's much dissension within your own camp, and he's thinking, uh, well, Mac and Bob are fighting each other, or what are they trying to do? Destroy the show? No, they what you and I would have done is created that ruse in order to make them think that, and to get people to thinking, well, maybe we ought to find out what's going on, because I look at it like this. Let's suppose, for example, that what's going on between Biden and Trump, and the individual war that they have going on between each other. Let's assume that was nothing but a ruse. Well, it could be a ruse, but who would it be? To whose advantage would it serve? America's not at this point in an active war with anybody else, so the only person that it would serve would be either Biden or Trump. Well, in the instance of Putin and the guy that's the head of the Wagner Group, if they who if they really would at each other's throats, who would it serve? It would serve Ukraine, and neither one of them. They both hate Ukraine, and they hate that guy Zelensky. They want to see him out of power. This is just the way I conjure this in my own analysis of it. Uh, so I think it's a ruse, but it's a great military tactical move, and I think in the coming days we're going to see much activity with the nuclear front that was created several weeks ago in Belarus, and we might even see the launching of a nuclear weapon.
Well, along those lines, Bob, there about what's happening over there. Russia has not backed down from any from its commitment to fight and stay in the game there with Ukraine. Because just recently, their military repelled more than 20 Ukrainian attacks in a single day. So, like you said, if they're going to try to use this as some type of, they're saying that there's a weakness in in Russia with their military over in Ukraine, I think they're going to be in for a pleasant, unpleasant surprise here, as you so aptly put it there. So we will continue to monitor this because Russia also stated by the from their Russian foreign minister said in a statement on Saturday that the attempted armed rebellion that took place in our country has sparked a sharp rejection in Russian society, which resolutely supports the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, the minister's statement said. He further stated that the aventuristic aspirations of the conspirators, in fact, are aimed at destabilizing the situation in Russia and destroying our unity. He continued. Thus, the rebellion plays into the hands of Russia's external enemies. We warn Western countries against any hint of possible use of the domestic Russian situation to achieve their Russia-phobic goals. Such attempts are futile and will not find a response either in Russia or among sane political forces abroad. In other words, he said that, hey, don't try to use this here as some kind of way to play the world against us because people around the world already know who we are. And they're not going to fall for your media tactics and trying to, like I heard this morning, a guy say, oh, yeah, this is going to be the end of Putin and the turning point in that war over there in Ukraine. And apparently that is not going to happen, Bob.
I,
But
I think it, I think that that that's accurate. Because think of this: if Putin was in such deep trouble, how come over the course of this last year that war's been going on, those other countries that are so supportive of him, how come if they wanted Zelensky to win the war, Ukraine to win the war, why didn't they send some of their forces in there, like this guy, the Wagner group, who is a mercenary group, send their people in there to physically help out? They were willing to stand back on the sidelines and like you at a crap game and bet on the come, but they were not willing to actually roll the dice themselves. So I think that that's a good observation. That uh, all they're doing is uh, continuing to stir a stew pot of hell, and I don't think it's going to end well, because I really believe that we're very much on the, and you used this word the other day, we're on the precipice of a nuclear conflagration, and I don't think it's going to be very long. I think uh, this lie that they're telling us, the public, could be the initial activity in the start of that nuclear war.
well, you brought up something last week as well, Bob. If I recall correctly, you mentioned something about where uh, Putin has pulled out a weapon that it had in its arsenal, and it was a nuclear weapon. Am I? Didn't you tell me about that last week?
Yes, that's right. His hypersonic missile, which they could launch from wherever it is, and it could blow up Britain in 6 minutes, and it could be here in America in 18 minutes. So yeah, you're right.
So, what type of weapon is this, though, Bob? I mean,
Well, it's just it's a bigger missile that could carry a heavier payload. It could carry 13 different uh, nuclear bombs, and all of those bombs can be directed uh, in uh, in different directions. Let's say, for example, if they shot it off at the United States and they wanted to pick out 15 states that they wanted those bombs to drop on, they could drop it in Detroit, New York, California, Texas. Pick out 15 big cities that you would want to hit, and they could be in your backyard within 18 minutes from the time they launch till the time those bombs start dropping on my head here in Detroit.
yeah, I see where it called it DEFCON 1. Uh,
Right,
t-
right,
that's they tell me that's the highest you can get. You go up to DEFCON 5, but DEFCON 1 is the highest that you can get. It's the world's, and he vows to deploy the world's most powerful nuke, Satan 2, to combat
right,
duty and chill a new threat to the West. And now
right,
somebody went there
right,
and paid that Wagner boss there to create this here thing. That's what I
right.
think. The West. I think you might have the CIA involved in this, Bob.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't. I think the CIA is too busy keeping us Negroes confused, so that we don't want to pick up on our reparations back.
He's like, that's what it is.
I don't think that they're too interested in what's going on the world base. As long as they can keep us in check here in America and keep us distracted, with gun control, education, affirmative action, voting rights, and things like that. Uh, they don't have they'll leave that stuff up to the military. Now the military has its own intelligence arm, so what you say in terms of the intelligence aspect of it certainly could fall on the intelligence part of the military.
Well, what I think, it doesn't necessarily have to be you know, Great Britain has the same type of intelligence as the CIA. I forgot what's they called now.
Yeah, the MI5.
Yeah, right. And so they do the same thing. And then you have other, like you said, military stuff like the I think it was probably the SEALs who went down there and blew up that pipeline. You know?
Right, right,
So, I mean, because no one has denied that the United States didn't do that, I mean, they've tried to, but the truth somehow or another came out. So, uh,
right,
if they didn't do it, they set it up where they helped the Ukrainians do it. But
right,
and this and I think with this powerful missile that came out here with this nuke device that Putin has put into play here, Bob. I think he's like Putin stated, said in the near future, the first launchers of the Sarmat complex with a new heavy missile will go on combat duty. He also
right,
he also stressed the importance of Russia triad of nuclear forces that can be launched from land, sea, or air. And this
absolutely.
and this
Yes,
Satan 2 weapon was designed to carry out nuclear strikes in countries, Bob, not in a country, but in
right.
countries thousands of miles away.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And I mean, and if anybody wants to know what can a particular weapon like this do, you should study the history of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What's that other place, Bob?
Yeah, you're right. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because the bombs that they're playing with today are 1,000 times more destructive than those two bombs that they dropped on those two cities. Are
and
1,000 times as destructive, and those were pretty destructive. I mean, and the people are still dying from that those explosions back in 1945.
And
You know,
it's amazing that this guy Wagner. They haven't given us any concrete reason as to why this guy decided to occupy this city in Russia. There,
right?
Rostov, I believe, Rostov on Don, Russia. Why did this guy and then start traveling towards Moscow? Did he think that he had any chance of overthrowing the Kremlin?
No, I don't think so. I think that's exactly my point. I think that was a contrived meeting between him and Putin, and it said, "Look, we're going to tell the world that this is what's going on, but this is what's really going on. You and I know, uh, and we're going to make it look like I'm against the generals that are ruling this war." Because, if you look back at American history, American wars, there's been wars where generals have had difficulty with the presidents of these states, of the United States. MacArthur is one that comes to mind. And I mean, back in World War II, the Japanese War. But so I think that that's a part of the ruse. I think that they concocted that story in order to distract uh, people's thinking, particularly the military people that are trying to win on their side, and they'll be thinking that it'll get them to go soft in a sense. They'll kind of lighten their guard, uh, and uh, and make the entrance of the enemy a lot easier,
Oh, well,
although they don't realize that's what's happening to them.
right. And this guy Prigozhin, the head of Wagner, there, he was a close friend and probably still is of Putin, right? Didn't Putin kind of
Oh,
make
sure.
him? Putin made him into this big entrepreneur, a caterer, or whatever, a restaurateur tour that he was.
Right, sure.
So there's a lot of stuff here. And what's that old saying you used to say about, oh, what a tangled web we weave here, you know?
That's right. When we attempt to deceive.
Yeah. So I mean, nobody really knows what's happening there, but it might be a deflection to throw the give the Western media something to talk about as they get ready to. Now, a lot of people say, Bob, but I mean, I'm talking about these are people in the know that Russia could have annihilated Ukraine a long time ago, but they didn't want to do it. And right now there's not that many standing buildings there in Ukraine. I'm told. I don't know. I mean, some
Yeah.
areas. And
Uh-huh.
so it makes you wonder now, why would Ukraine continue to try to fight to hold on to something? Because I mean, they knowing that they can't win this unless they are hoping and praying that the NATO will come step in and they will start fighting Russia as well, and then started fighting Russia on Russia homeland. You think
Right. Right.
You think there's a possibility of that happening, Bob, or will this war end just as it started by one dynamic way that World War II was ended with the dropping of those bombs over in Hiroshima?
That's what I think is going to happen, Mac. I think it. I think there's going to be. Uh, I think they're going to drop a bomb, and once they do that, that's going to be enough to shock the Europeans because they've never had a bomb like that dropped right in. They did a lot of bombing during World War II in England, and but it was not nearly as devastating as a nuclear device will cause. So yeah, I think that will end it once they drop that bomb. That'll stop it. It'll either end it or it will cause a global nuclear war.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, Bob. I'm hoping that that the some adults will step into the room, and, and realize that we're not out here on the playground playing little games. I mean, this is something that can destroy the world,
That's right.
not just one country, but the
That's
world.
right.
When that nuclear fallout start traveling around this earth, it may
That's right.
so, and they're still having like this Chernobyl situation in Russia. They still having
Right.
a fallout from that as well as over there in Japan and Hiroshima,
That's right. Oh, absolutely.
because they tell me that the nuclear radiation, it takes hundreds and hundreds of years for it to dissipate. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. It's correct. It's called a half life. Carbon, one of the isotopes that is allowed to come out during an explosion, has a half life of, I think, 2,000 years. So let's look at it like this. Let's say you had 16 ounces of carbon and you dropped it today. 2,000 years from now, that would be because of half life, it would be 8 ounces. And then another 2,000 years, it'll be 4 ounces. And another 2,000 years, it'll be 2 ounces. And that's what is that? 2, 4, 6. That's 8,000 years in order for it to get down to 2 ounces. And meanwhile, while that drug that half life of that isotope is being minimized, people are dying.
Oh yeah, that's true, and that's why that's what they are seeing over there in Japan. I'm told, but
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. That's right. That's exactly right. And
so
and and Mac, think of this. If they didn't tell us about that, you don't see any of these so-called scientists getting on TV explaining isotopes and things like that to the American people. That would be something worthwhile to talk about, to explain, so that most of us could become more intelligent about what a nuclear war means. But
but
they don't do that. And you have professors. I learned this stuff through my professors when I was at Langston in Oklahoma, but you don't hear them talking about this kind of stuff. And I don't know why, but maybe it's a part of that disinformation to keep us ignorant.
well, Bob, I mean, the whole thing is like they treat the American public like mushrooms. They keep them in the dark and feed them shit. That's how mushrooms uh, grow. So that's exactly what they do to the American people, because they don't
Yes,
want you to know anything like that. If people knew this, what we are talking about right now, they would be up in arms about what the United States has been doing over there in Ukraine. You know,
Yes.
because the only thing, and they keep pushing, and they act as if though they don't care unless it's some type of game, like I said earlier. Why would the
Yes.
Europe, the head of the NATO, the European Union, or whoever that guy is over there, he just continues to push and say and trying to say that they're going to go and possibly send troops into Ukraine. Now,
Yes.
they keep pushing Russia, and Russia trying to tell them, hey, I've got these weapons here, and if you push me too far, I will let them go. And they
Yes.
and Russia has no allegiance with these people.
They sure don't.
I mean, not now. I mean, look at Russia. They out there. They are striking up deals to continue to build their economy and their world relationship with countries in Africa, India, China, South America. They are doing these things, and so they do not want to be pushed around by the Western world. But if they push them too far, they're gonna let go with one of those bombs, Bob. And
I
that's
think you're right.
and that's just like as a kid, you know, you learn that if you take a cat and you put him up in a corner, that cat gonna come out fighting.
That's right.
I mean, he gonna get out of that corner some kind of way, and that's exactly what's being done to Putin. And they use all of their media and stuff. The oligarchs of America and Europe, they use all of their money and their power with their medias to go after and talk about these things and stir up things and try to get. And you know, the American people and many people in the European area, Western world, they are so gullible, Bob. They
Yes.
believe everything these people tell them on these news shows like CNN, MSNBC, Fox, you name it. They believe all of that instead of trying to be critical thinkers and try to go out there and try to find information from other sources that will be more balanced and more objective and neutral. They believe what these people tell them. And this,
Back. Let me tell you this. Another little side story. My cousin, who's dead now, he was my mother's first cousin, so he's my second cousin. He lives in Colorado, so every time I go to Denver, I'd go by and visit him. And we used to sit and talk about the war because he was a soldier. He was in a black group, but he said, and we would talk about what you're just talking about, how people are so gullible. And he said, "Well, Bobby, you know, when I was in a service, and we would go to town, particularly in France. This is where they were at the time. They go to get a brothel, you know, to get them a woman." And he said he didn't. His friends told him about this, but he didn't really pay any attention to it until it actually happened to him. He said the first thing that the girls try to do when you take your pants off and you both of you get naked, is she walks around to the back of you and kind of looks you over. Instead of looking at your penis size, she's looking at the back of you, looking at your butt. And I said, "Well, what was that about?" He said, "Well, they were trying to see how long our tails were." I said, "Oh, come on now." I said, "What?" He said, "Oh yeah." He said they really thought that the black soldier had tails, and they were trying to see our tails, see how long they were. And I said, "Oh man, that is almost unbelievable," but it was true. I mean, so you're right. It's just like now, you know, even to this day, 2023. I think that's why they don't want to give us reparations because so many people are gullible that black people don't know how to handle money. I mean, they think that they'll do what Bob said he was going to do: take some of his money, drive down the street, and throw it out the window.
Well,
And
you're right, Bob. You're right about that reparations, and I think that black people have to get their heads out of the sand and
yes,
out of the media and start thinking, say, hey, why is it that I got a house right here, but my house is the same house as my co-worker who lives on the other side of town, same size, but his house is worth $200,000 to $300,000 more than mine.
yes,
And I
yes,
mean, if they looked at that situation like that and said why, and seeing what their net worth, and that's not, and that's only a few blacks in a position like that, Bob, by the totality and the percentage of blacks in this country. You know what I mean? It's,
yes.
it's not all blacks that's living like that could say that, but we seem to not think about others because for all of us who may be doing well to a certain extent, we all got, as you brought out about your cousins, we all got some cousins, nephews, or nieces, or somebody who are not doing well, Bob,
Yes,
financially, and and the reason for that happening to many is just that they did not get the break that some of us got, or did not.
that's
We,
right.
a
I mean,
lot of
think of
times,
them.
yeah, a lot of times they
Think of
say,
those relatives, and think where they would be if their parents, our cousins, uncles, and aunts, could leave them wealth from their generation from slavery, just as many whites or Caucasoids leave their. You take the same. You take my cousin who doesn't have the say the material wherewithal as another cousin uh, because they're from different, but because he didn't get an inheritance that the one cousin got, but they would both be better off if they'd gotten an inheritance of that 40 acres and a mule.
oh yeah, that's what I'm saying, that blacks have to start to recognizing the fact that if you got the $350,000, and for every person that got that and had a family, if they went out and they took a portion of that money and they bought a house, no matter what the cost of that house was, 100,000 or 200,000 or 300,000, or whatever, and they kept that
Yes,
house and they had a job or some type of income coming in where they could meet the insurance and the taxes on that house, and also they have money for keep the maintenance up on that home. Like, or whatever the cost of that home, they usually say is roughly about 8% a year in maintenance costs. Might not be that every year, but still the fact is you go on when you die, you leave that back to your two kids.
right.
So they got $150,000 each that they can invest in the market. You don't even have to leave it back for them. You can have it say, okay, well, this house will sell and go in, and the proceeds will go into a trust, and that trust will pay out to my two kids 50-50, and then and it will go into perpetuity where when their kids they die, then their kids will split whatever income is coming from that trust. I mean,
Absolutely.
that is no rocket scientist, Bob. We got a lot of lawyers in our race, and we got a lot of financial people in our race, and they can easily find and get this information and be able to set up something where there will be inheritances for the future generations of their offsprings. You know what I mean? So
Yes,
until blacks wake up to recognize this, I mean, we'll never be able to make this ship sail, Bob.
that's right.
We're gonna be at anchor here for centuries to come if we don't start making a move on it right now.
I think
Believe
you're
me,
absolutely right.
believe me when I tell you, and if people don't think so, just because I read something the other day uh, where they uh, where they were talking about more and more blacks are becoming billionaires now. I think they mentioned something about 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that. What?
Yeah,
Now they put that crap out and they look at that. That has nothing to do with the 20 to 30 million out here that's in poverty or somewhere near there, or lower middle
absolutely.
class. I mean,
Absolutely.
so because you go out there and give a few something, who and you give it to those who not going to do anything with it, but anyway, return it back to the establishment in one way or the other. That's what happens, Bob. Because if it
Oh,
didn't
sure.
happen like that, tell me what black businessman that you know of that's a mega type businessman that's got a company out there that's hiring many, many blacks.
Right.
Can you think
I
of one,
the
Bob?
only one that I can think of in my lifetime was Ebony Magazine.
Right. And what Ebony Magazine, what are they doing now? They
I don't know. Are they still
everything
in
now,
business? I don't
everything
know.
well, what I'm saying is everything is digital now. So if they didn't go digital, I don't even know if they're in existence. I mean, I'm pretty sure they are, but 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 I'm talking about like manufacturing companies.
Oh, right. Yeah, I can't think of. I know here in Detroit we had a company called Being Steel, but that was one of those Philadelphia type companies where they got 10% of the steel business. Kind of as a front.
Well, this is why I'm saying that those people out there with all these mega monies, like for instance, say if you got $1 billion, Bob, and you know me. I mean, and I know you. You got $1 billion. What is 100 million of that dollars if you take it and invest it into something worthwhile that's going to benefit million or hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of others, where they
Yes,
can get
sure.
jobs, man. I mean,
Right,
it's no rocket scientists in this stuff, man. So I
right.
don't know why you don't come and tell me about all your black billionaires. They don't mean anything to me. If they not, I ain't talking about coming around in the black community giving out turkeys on Thanksgiving Day. I'm talking about doing something where you can make yourself a multi billionaire by what the Bible talks about that. When you reach down to help others, you are helping yourself.
Right.
And I mean, you remember we was in a business once, and the guy talked about this in his video. Bob, he said when you go out there and you help other people do well, that's our goal is helping other people. We're gonna do well.
Yes.
I think that was Sprint.
That was who?
Sprint.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
And and that was so true. And you take the guy that started the Templeton Fund. He says he was a real Christian, Bob, and he says the same thing. And the Templeton Fund is big even today, Bob, as
Uh huh.
mutual funds, whatever. So I mean, this is what these blacks have to do. And most of the time, blacks when they do start a business, what do? They're surrounded by other whites in that field. If that's good or bad, I'm not saying anything about whether it's good or bad. I'm saying what
Uh
are
huh.
you doing to uplift the race and create wealth within the community, black community? Because until
Yes.
we are all free, none of us are free.
Absolutely not.
So we have to stay on top of this, and I would hope that our listeners, Bob, would also take this in consideration and get out and push, not just, sure, write to your representatives, your senators. I've done that. I've done that for various other causes that I believe in. So I do it for reparations. But you get your friends, your neighbors, and you share this video with them. You share other videos where we talk about reparation, where other people videos that other people talk about reparations, and you share that with them. And you do grassroots things and tell people to get out and support reparations because it's not just for people like Bob and I. It's for the generations to come.
That's right. And I would just add one thing to that point back. Last week you were talking about the Million Man March. We ought to have a million person march, a million person reparation march.
Right.
You know, I got to thinking about that after you told about that experience you had, and I got to thinking, wow, if today, if we could have a million reparation march like we had for the Million Man March, and this would be everybody, women, men, women, and children, saying that we need our reparations. Give us our money. Maybe that might stimulate some of these politicians that work for us to get off their duffs and start doing something because they would see that we're serious about wanting this money. But as long as we don't do anything, or the so-called leadership doesn't say anything about it, Miss Cori Bush's HRS 414 is not going to go anywhere. It will linger in the Congress, just like Representative John Conyers' HR 40 uh, has languished in the Congress since 1989.
Well, Barbara Lee reintroduced Representative Conyers' bill, H.R. 40. She reintroduced that, and that passed and went through the Justice Committee in the House. But it
Oh,
has now,
okay.
that's been more than 6 months ago, I believe, Bob.
Oh,
Yet,
okay.
yet it has not gone before a vote on the floor. Why?
Yes. See, that's right. That's right. Tell us where you stand. Are you for it or against it? And you can't get that kind of a vote until, as you point out, until it gets on the floor, gets through these committees, it gets on the floor. And that's why I think a million person march might stimulate people to see that there's a seriousness in the Negroid community about this money.
Right, and and the thing it is too, the people out there who have the influence should start to organize a 5 million person march on Washington. I
Uh
say
huh.
5 million, Bob, not 1 million.
Yes, I heard you.
So hopefully something will like that will come about. And I want to back up just 1 minute. You mentioned about Ebony Magazine. Ebony
Yes.
Magazine in March of 21, it relaunched in a digital format. It's no
Oh,
longer
okay.
it's no longer available in the regular paper format
Oh, okay.
as of 2021 anyway. But
Wow.
but that happens, Bob, because that's the same thing that's happening with a lot of things. You take the Airbnb, their uh, capitalization is more than all the hotels in this in this country. You know what I mean?
Oh, really? Oh,
And they
wow.
don't own not one piece of property as far as what they are doing out there.
Oh, boy.
I mean, they have other people to go out there, and they have their property that they lease, rent to people on a day, or weekend, or a monthly basis, or
Uh
whatever,
huh.
however long they want to go. And they making and those people making money, and Airbnb making money, and they are
Uh huh.
so everything is going digital. Look at taxi cab companies now. You got Uber
Yes.
out there and Lyft. All of these are digital companies. They don't own any ass cabs or cars or anything. What it be? It's digital, but we live in a digital society right now, and that's what has happened. And Albany, at least, they saw where they had to get into the digital world if they were going to survive, and that's what's happening with
Yes.
all the newspapers as well, Bob. They want you to subscribe to their papers, pay $1 a week or whatever. Some want more than that, uh, and to in order to make revenue, generate revenue. So,
Yes.
but that's where we are today, though, Bob. And I really appreciate you coming on and straightening out things on the situation there in Russia and with our media throughout the Western world here and what they are doing to try to escalate things and make people think that in their mind, oh, Russia's going down the tube. And it's just like I hear many of our black brothers and sisters when they talk about they're so influenced by CNN and these other news outlets that they don't seem to want to go and do their own research. Like, for instance, they want to say "Make America Great Again," make the mega thing, mega whatever they call it. That's all to go back to the days when there was segregation, and the black man foot was on the neck of the white man's foot was on the neck of the Negro, you know.
Yes.
And I don't think that I want to see America get great again, Bob, like it used to be, where kids respected the adults. And people and other grown-ups respected the senior citizens, and the
Yes.
and people were chivalry towards women, and women was respectful of their bodies and dressed accordingly. These are the things. This is what America used to be. This is what the world. I mean, we're not. I mean, if we lived in an area where that it was acceptable to dress like that, if you want to be dressed in a nude manner, half nude or whatever, then you can join a nudist colony. They have that in this country.
Yes.
Or
Sure.
you could go to certain other areas of the world and you could go there and be like that. But we are in these United States, and this country here was founded on Christianity. Now, if you don't believe in Christianity, that's fine, all good and well, because that's part of what the Constitution provides for free speech and free right to any religion that you want to be associated with. But
That's right.
but since we are founded on that and have been like that, I, that's what I say, make America great again, going back to that religion. Because if you want to say, oh, that's the white man's religion, that's no more of a white man's religion than it is a yellow man's religion. You know what I mean?
Y- Yes.
If you go,
Absolutely.
if
I,
you
I
go
do. So,
if you go back and look at the history of that of Christianity and the history of Judaism and all of that, and you're gonna be pleasantly and some people surprisingly surprised. You know what I mean?
sure.
Because of what you will find out, and this is not the platform for that right now. But I just want people to understand that what we are saying here is that you have to be cognizant of your surroundings. You have to know what is going on. You have to have a critical mindset where you are a critical thinker in what is going on. You can't just believe everything somebody tells you and you go out and you live your life based on that lie that they are telling you, because a lot of times that's what they are, lies. So
That's right.
so you have to figure that out, and then you and a lot of us think that I'm not a Republican, Bob, by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll vote for a Republican if I see what his interest, what that my vote going to serve my interest and people that's associated with me interest. But and the same thing with the Democrats. But right now, I had been a Democrat most of my life, Bob, but I've seen things that the Democrats are doing right now that I do not want a part of. And I think that if most blacks looked at this thing critically, they'll feel the same way. But they're not
Yes.
doing that, Bob. They're accepting it as it is, and you don't have to accept that. It's the same thing like you accepting that, oh, we don't need any reparations. We are okay. I'm okay.
Right.
You're okay. We, what,
Right.
what do we need reparations for? But Bob, they
Right.
gotta think just like Corey Bush said. Our foreparents they put in 22 million hours of labor and never got paid a penny for it.
Right.
And yet they prosper off all of those proceeds from those hours that work that our parents did, our foreparents did, and they have passed that down from generation to generation. And just look
Absolutely, Mac. Somebody's descendant from the slave owners is drawing interest on those 22 billion hours.
exactly. And then the ones that came over here later, they were able to come in 18 well even before then when they was expanding out to west to Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, when they was expanding out that way. They got
Right.
free land then, Bob. That was in the 1840s, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Then in 1882, they started bringing these boatloads more of immigrants over into from Europe over into this country and expanded out even further out to Idaho, Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma, your home state.
Yeah.
And they was giving them up 100 on the average of 160 acres. And they living off of, and those who did well with those 160 acres, they passed that on down, Bob.
Right.
And and then we go on into the Jim Crow era right there when those other ones came over here in the turn of the century, 1900. What happened? They came over here, Bob, and they was able to get all the union jobs because they would not give blacks in the union jobs. And by getting all those pipe fitter jobs, those sheet metal jobs, machinist jobs and everything, they was able to accelerate their families' uh, lifestyle up to the middle class and on up above, to send their kids on to college or trade schools or wherever they desired to do. Many blacks
Yeah.
couldn't do that. Most blacks were still down south during that era, that time period, and they were down there working as sharecroppers, the majority that was in the south, and they didn't share anything because the
Sure.
company owned the store, and every time they needed something, Bob, they would, hey, here you can get this here until you break till the crops get in. When the crops came in, hey, you still owe us. You don't have any money coming to you. So
That's
that
right.
old song said, I owed my soul to the company store.
That's right.
And that's why people, I'm telling you right now, we need reparations. Not just for us, but for our generations of kids to come, grandkids, grandkids, the future. And once we do that, if they, like Bob said, if they want to take it out there and throw it out the window of a car, I mean, I'm sure that most of them not going to do that, but that was just a figurative, a figurative of speech there. They're throwing it out the window. And nobody will throw that money out in the window. They might not spend it properly, but they're not going to throw it out the window. But we,
Yeah. Yeah. Let me make a disclaimer here, Mac.
it's okay.
You're absolutely right. I wouldn't throw it out the window like that. I was just using that as an example of what somebody might foolishly do. No, Bob wouldn't do that.
Right. I know you wouldn't, Bob. But anyway, people, we want to thank you for coming on this show and listening to us today. I know some of you think maybe we're ranting and raving, but I hope you can see between these lines that we are talking here, people, that we are serious about what we are saying. And if you think
Yes,
about what we are saying, go back and listen to it again, people. And don't
that's
forget to
right.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe this video because we need your support so we can continue to get the word out to the people about this reparation. We're not going to let it die, people. As long as we got breath here, Bob and I would not let it die. Right, Bob?
That's right, Mac. And thank you again for reminding me of that.
Okay, well let's keep let's stay focused, people, and get the word out. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, Bob, and have a great rest of your day.